It was on one of those warm summer mornings in Baker Street when the air carried both the scent of our censored by its oasis from Regent's Park and the dust of London carriages. I had been reading a medical journal while Holmes sat across from me in his usual dressing gown, crouched lazily upon the couch, a pipe between his lips, his eyes fixed not upon the ceiling this time, but upon a collection of curious fishing hooks which lay scattered upon the table. Little did I know that these hooks would soon bear upon the very matter which was to engage us so deeply. Holmes had spent most of the week in comparative idleness, which to him was a condition most perilous. I had observed more than once that when his great mind found no occupation, it turned inwards, producing a nervous restlessness that expressed itself either in violent violin playing or in his darker experiments with narcotics. But on this particular morning, his manner was alert, his long fingers moving delicately as he balanced one of the hooks against the light.
You perceive, Watson, that this barb is unusually heavy, almost cruel in its construction. I should judge it to have been intended for something more formidable than a trout or perch. Consider, if you will, the strength required. It bespeaks deep sea fishing, or perhaps even harpooning.
Indeed, Holmes, it seems a formidable piece of steel, though I cannot quite see what you find so singular about it. Fishing hooks, even large ones, must be common enough among sporting gentlemen.
True, my dear fellow, but you mistake me if you think I examine it solely for its craftsmanship. Objects, Watson, have a way of whispering their stories if one has ears to hear. And this hook whispers of a man, rough, weathered by salt and wind, whose hands bear the marks of rope and tar, and whose livelihood depends upon the capture of creatures far more dangerous than the docile carp of an English pond.
I could not help but smile at his deduction. To me, it appeared mere fancy, and yet experience had taught me that such fancy often became fact in the presence of Sherlock Holmes. It was at this moment that our morning was disturbed by the arrival of Inspector Hopkins, a young and energetic officer of Scotland Yard whose devotion to Holmes bordered at times on reverence. His boots rang heavily upon the stair, and presently he was shown in by Mrs. Hudson.
Good morning, Mr. Holmes, Dr. Watson. I feared I bring you business of the grimmest kind. We have a case upon our hands, sir, and I thought of none but you to aid us.
Sit down, Inspector Hopkins, and compose yourself. You are flushed and travel-worn. You have not broken your fast, I think. A cup of coffee, Watson, if you please. Now tell me, what mischief calls you so early to Baker Street?
Murder, Mr. Holmes, a murder most brutal, committed in the small town of Forest Row, in Sussex. The victim is one, Peter Carey, better known in those parts as Black Peter.
Cass, at the mention of that grim title, Holmes's eyes lit with sudden interest.
A Black Peter. Ah, the name carries a certain resonance. A former master of whaling vessels, if I recall correctly, known alike for his seamanship and his violent temper. Pray continue, Hopkins.
You are exactly right, sir. Carey had retired some years ago to a cottage he had built with his own hands. It was a lonely dwelling, set amidst a grove of fir trees, and there he lived with his wife and daughter. He was a man of terrible passions, given much to drink, and held in fear by all who knew him. Yesterday morning, however, his daughter found him impaled.
Impaled. Good heavens!
Yes, Dr. Watson. He was discovered in his outhouse cabin, the very room he used as a sort of den. There he sat in his chair, his body pinned to the wall by a quaint harpoon, driven clean through him with monstrous force.
A harpoon, you say? How singular! A weapon most unusual upon dry land, and yet one strangely suited to the man's own history. What more, Hopkins? Spare us no detail.
The cabin was found locked, though the window stood open. On the table lay two glasses, one half full of rum, the other was empty. Beside them a bottle stood uncorked. It appears Carey entertained some visitor late in the night. There are footprints in the soil outside, though indistinct. And one more matter, among the litter of papers and personal effects in that room, I found a notebook, one of his old log books.
Ah, a logbook, the very diary of a sailor's soul. We shall examine it with care. Tell me, Hopkins, what of the harpoon itself? From whence came it?
It was one of several that hung upon the wall of the cabin. It appears the murderer seized it in the moment and drove it through Carey with the force of a giant.
So, the very man's own weapon was turned against him. A poetic justice of sorts, though nonetheless savage. Watson, do you not see? The hook upon my table this morning, the harpoon in the body. It is as though fate had been whispering the theme before its performance.
Holmes's words sent a chill through me, though the warmth of the day streamed through the windows. His mind, it seemed, already moved ahead, linking chance impressions with dreadful facts.
I have arrested no one as yet, Mr. Holmes. There is suspicion, but no proof. The villagers whisper of Carey's many enemies, smugglers, shipmates, even his own kin, but none can be firmly charged. I confess the matter grows beyond me. That is why I entreat your assistance.
You have done wisely, Inspector. Such a crime, clothed in the peculiar garb of the sea, cries out for delicate handling. You must allow me to accompany you to Forest Row. Watson, you are at leisure?
Entirely, Holmes.
Then it is settled. Hopkins, you shall have our company by the afternoon train. Meanwhile, Watson, let us make our preparations. There is more in this than the mere slaying of a violent drunkard. I feel the stir of deep waters beneath.
And thus, within the hour, Holmes had cast aside his dressing gown for his travelling suit, and we were bound for Sussex. As the train bore us southward, he spoke little, his brows drawn together in that expression I knew so well, his mind busy fitting together the fragments of a puzzle invisible to me. The fields of Surrey gave way to the wooded slopes of Sussex until at last we arrived at the quiet station near Forest Row, where a hired trap awaited us. The inspector rode with us, and soon we drew up at a lonely lane bordered by fir trees, at the end of which stood the small and trim dwelling of Peter Carey.
There, gentlemen, is Woodman's Lee, as Carey named it, a snug enough place by daylight, though the shadow of last night's horror still hangs heavy upon it. The widow and daughter keep to the house, stricken with terror. It is the cabin yonder, that small outbuilding, which contains the scene of the crime.
Holmes alighted with his keen gaze fixed upon the surroundings. Never have I seen him more alert, as though every blade of grass might hold a clue.
Remark the isolation, Watson. A dwelling too lonely for a man of peace. It is a place chosen by one who wished no neighbor to mark his deeds. Observe also the fir trees, close set, concealing all approach. Hopkins, lead on.
We followed to the cabin, a stout structure of timber, the door now unbarred. Within was a small chamber, rough but not uncomfortable, furnished with a sea chest, a table, and several chairs. The walls were hung with charts, weapons, and the trophies of a sailor's life. But it was the chair by the wall that commanded all attention, for there still sat the body of Black Peter, stiff and ghastly, impaled to the very planking by the cruel iron of a harpoon. I confess I could not gaze long upon the dreadful sight. The face was twisted in agony, the beard bristling, the eyes staring horribly. Holmes, however, stepped close, his expression calm, his hands behind his back.
See, Watson, how the weapon has been driven clean through the chest, pinning him like a butterfly upon a board. Such force bespeaks a man of extraordinary strength, or else one accustomed to the use of such tools. Note also the angle. It is a thrust delivered not from above, but straight on, with the murderer standing at near arm's length.
The door was found locked upon the inside, with the key in the lock. How then did the murderer escape?
A riddle indeed, but not insuperable. The window is wide enough, and its sill shows marks of a boot. You see, Watson, the impression is faint, yet there is the heel.
I bent to examine, marveling as ever at the quickness of his eye.
And here, upon the table, the glasses you spoke of, Hopkins. Two men sat here drinking. One is Carey himself, the other his visitor. Rum, you say. Yet observe, the lips of this emptied glass bear no trace of moustache hair. Our visitor, then, was either beardless or had taken the precaution of wiping his mouth.
Your powers astound me, Mr. Holmes.
They are but trifles, my good Hopkins, trifles which may lead us to truth, if correctly arranged. Let us also examine the logbook. Watson, your hands are steadier than mine. Kindly read the entries aloud.
I took up the volume, its pages stained with seawater and tobacco. The entries were brief, recording voyages, cargoes, and weather. Yet one name recurred more than once, standing out amidst the scroll: Hudson.
Hudson, just as I expected, a seaman of disreputable character, often in trouble with the law. He had sailed with Carey before, and it is whispered they were involved in more than one act of smuggling. Hopkins, you must set your men to seek this Hudson. He is no doubt known to the waterfront.
At once, sir.
And thus began our investigation into the strange and brutal end of Black Peter. Yet little did I suspect how many twists of fate, how many dark currents beneath the calm surface awaited us still. The grim sight of Peter Carey's corpse haunted me long after we left the outhouse. I could not rid my mind of that savage iron piercing him through, nor of the thought that such violence might lurk behind the peaceful lanes of Sussex. Yet Holmes, ever master of his faculties, walked from the cabin with no trace of disturbance, his keen gaze already roving over the small garden that lay beyond.
You perceive, Watson, how the earth here is softer than within the shadow of the firs. It has preserved impressions where a careless man might think himself invisible. Look here. Do you see?
I bent close. At first, the ground seemed but a confusion of scuffed patches, yet under Holmes's guiding finger, I discerned the outline of a boot print, deep and sharp.
The heel is square cut, the sole thick. Such boots are often sold to sailors. Compare with your own, Watson. You see how different? Yours taper at the toe, his end bluntly.
Indeed, Holmes, but how can you be sure it is not Carey's own?
A fair question. Yet observe the direction. These prints lead from the window outward, not inward. They belong to the visitor who left after the deed was done.
I shall have passed a cast made of them, sir.
By all means, Hopkins, though I doubt not, the boots themselves will soon be under our very noses, if we but wait.
Holmes next examined the inside of the cabin with renewed care, moving from chart to weapon, from chest to shelf, his long fingers brushing surfaces as though each grain of dust might reveal a story. At length he paused before the sea chest that stood against the wall.
This chest is locked. Who has the key?
Only the widow, Mr. Holmes. She says her husband kept it ever by him, and none dared to touch it.
Then let us have it opened.
Steve was fetched from Mrs. Carey, and with some effort the lock yielded. Within lay a strange collection: tarpaulins, coils of rope, an old sextant, and, half buried beneath them, several bundles of papers, wrapped in oilskin. Holmes drew these forth with evident satisfaction.
Ship's papers, bills of lading perhaps. These may prove of great significance. I shall examine them at leisure in London. But mark my word, Watson, there is something deeper here than the quarrel of drunkards.
I confess I did not yet perceive his meaning.
We have also found this. Mr. Holmes.
From his pocket, Hopkins produced a small tobacco pouch, worn with use, for it was embroidered with the initials NC in faded thread.
NC. A clue perhaps, or a blind. Hopkins, did Carey possess such an article?
Not that his family recall.
It may belong to our visitor. Note, Watson, the quality of the leather. It is cheap, common, likely bought in a sailor's quarter. I suspect our friend Hudson may yet have left his signature more plainly than he intended.
Holmes slipped the pouch into his pocket and closed the chest.
Now, gentlemen, we have seen enough for the present. Let us withdraw. The dead man will keep his secrets until we choose to unbind them.
Outside, the sun was already sinking behind the trees, casting long shadows across the clearing. We took leave of Mrs. Carey and her trembling daughter, assuring them that the pursuit of justice was already afoot. Then we returned to the inn, where rooms had been secured. That evening, as we sat before the fire, I could not resist pressing Holmes with questions. Holmes, you spoke earlier of deeper waters in this affair. Do you truly believe this murder to be more than a drunken quarrel?
My dear Watson, the very choice of weapon cries against such simplicity. Who, in a moment of passion, seizes a harpoon and drives it with surgical precision through a man's chest? No, this was done by design. Moreover, Carey himself was not a man to invite friendly company. That he drank with another proves the visitor had a powerful hold over him.
And the papers in his chest?
Shh, precisely. Why keep such records hidden unless they contained matter dangerous to himself or others? I have long suspected Carey of certain illegal ventures during his seafaring life. It may be that some partner or victim of those days has returned to exact vengeance or to silence him.
But surely Hudson.
Hudson is a possibility, but let us not narrow our field too soon. The initials NC may point to another. I keep my mind open. Tomorrow I shall attempt an experiment.
And what experiment is that?
Patience, Watson. You shall see. For now, to bed. We must rise early.
Holmes retired with the ease of a man untroubled by gruesome sights, while I lay long awake, haunted by the image of Black Peter. The next morning, Holmes was astir before me. I found him in the inn's courtyard, speaking with a stable lad.
Good. You are ready, Watson. Come. We shall visit the local inn frequented by sailors and fishermen. There we may learn whether our friend Hudson or another has been seen of late.
Inspector Hopkins accompanied us, and together we made our way to a rough tavern on the outskirts of the village. The air inside was thick with smoke, and a group of weather-beaten men sat at their ale.
Gentlemen, allow me.
Holmes approached the bar and, in a tone half hearty, half commanding, addressed the landlord.
A glass of rum, landlord, and perhaps a word. We are strangers here, seeking tidings of a sailor by name of Hudson, a tall fellow, red-faced, given to boasting. Have you seen such a man?
Hudson, say you? Aye, I know him well enough. He was here but 3 nights past, drinking deep and bragging of fortune soon to come. Left in company with another seafaring man, dark hair, foreign tongue. Said they had business with old Black Peter.
Just so. And did you mark where they went?
Toward the forest road, I reckon. But I say this, Hudson looked uneasy, as if he feared some reckoning.
Holmes thanked the man, and we withdrew.
That confirms it, Mr. Holmes. Hudson was with Carey the very night of the murder. Shall I issue warrants at once?
Not so fast, Hopkins. Certainty is the ally of justice, haste its enemy. Let us first ensnare our fish before we strike.
I could see in Holmes's eye that strange gleam which always foretold some daring stratagem.
This evening, Watson, we shall pay another visit to the cabin. Here, bring your revolver, though I trust it will not be needed, for I mean to lay a trap for our mysterious visitor.
A trap, Holmes?
Precisely. There is something yet within that cabin which will draw him back as surely as a moth to flame. Tonight we shall be there to greet him.
And thus, as the shadows lengthened once more across the Sussex lanes, Holmes, Hopkins, and I concealed ourselves near the outhouse of Peter Carey. The air was heavy with pine, and every creak of branch seemed laden with menace. We waited in silence, the corpse of Black Peter lying but a few yards away within. The hours dragged on. Midnight passed. Then 1 o'clock. Just as my limbs began to stiffen with cold, Holmes touched my arm.
Hush, someone comes.
Indeed, a figure stole through the trees, glancing nervously about. He paused at the door of the cabin, produced a key, and slipped within.
A key. Then he must be.
Patience, Hopkins.
We crept forward, and with sudden force, Holmes flung wide the door. There, by the light of a lantern, stood a man rifling through the sea chest, started, dropped the papers, and made for the window. But Hopkins seized him by the collar.
Got you, my lad.
The intruder struggled fiercely, but we soon overpowered him. He was a young man, not more than 25, clean-shaven, with sharp features and eyes that blazed with desperation.
And who might you be, sir?
Let me go. I've done no murder. I came only for what is mine.
Yours, say you? We shall see about that. What is your name?
John Hopley Nelligan.
Holmes's eyes flashed at the name, and I could see that some new thread of the tapestry had revealed itself to him.
Indeed, Mr. Nelligan. Then perhaps you will tell us what business brings the son of the ill-fated banker To the den of Black Peter at this hour?
Garbov. The young man turned pale, his lips trembling.
How do you know me? Who are you?
That, sir, is immaterial. What matters is that you have placed yourself in most perilous company.
With these words, Holmes's trap had sprung, but what revelations would follow, I could not yet guess. The lantern's flame wavered as Inspector Hopkins secured our prisoner with a pair of stout handcuffs. The young man John Hopley Nelligan stood rigid, his face pale yet proud, as though defiance alone could shield him from the shadow of the corpse but a few feet away. The harpoon still gleamed in the firelight, a ghastly reminder of the crime.
Now then, Mr. Nelligan, you'll explain yourself properly. To be caught rifling to a murdered man's chest in the dead of night, there is no innocence in such conduct.
I tell you, I am no murderer. I never raised a hand against him. I came only to reclaim what was mine, my father's property.
His voice broke, and for the first time I saw something more than fear in his eyes, grief, long pent and only now loosed.
Hush now, Hopkins. Let the man speak. Mr. Nelligan, you say your father's property. If I recall aright, your father was the banker who disappeared some years ago after the collapse of the West Country Bank.
Yes, Arthur Nelligan, my father. He fled, or so men said, but I never believed it. His yacht vanished at sea, and with it his fortune. I was but a lad then, yet I swore I would one day find proof of his fate.
And so you came here to Black Peter?
A month ago I learned that Carey had been a mate aboard my father's yacht. I thought, perhaps he knew, perhaps he had papers that would show what befell. That is why I sought him out.
And he welcomed you with a harpoon, I suppose?
No. I came to his cabin, begged him for the truth. He cursed me, called my father a thief. He drove me out with threats. But I swear, when I left him alive, though in drink, he had no wound upon him.
His words rang with such desperate sincerity that for a moment I felt convinced of his innocence. Holmes, however, stood silent, his eyes fixed upon Nelligan as though reading his very soul.
And tonight, what prompted you to return?
I thought, if he were dead, perhaps the proof I sought lay in his chest. I feared others would seize it. That is why I came in secret.
Proof of your father's innocence.
Yes, for years men have called him a villain who robbed his bank and fled. But I believe he was wronged, that he was slain for his good, and the blame laid upon him.
A noble purpose, perhaps. Yet the law must judge deeds, not motives. Hopkins, you may remove the prisoner for the present.
With pleasure, Mr. Holmes. He shall cool his heels till the magistrate hears him.
Nelligan cast one last imploring glance toward Holmes, but no reply was given. He was led away under guard, leaving Holmes and me once more in the silent cabin of Black Peter. Holmes stood long in thought, pacing slowly before the ghastly chair.
Watson, what do you make of it?
I hardly know Holmes. The young man seemed earnest, even truthful, yet his presence here, his secret search, it damns him.
So it would appear. And yet, mark you the force that drove this harpoon through Carey's chest. Nelligan is of slight build, unaccustomed to the sea's brutal labor. I doubt he could pierce a bale of cotton, let alone a sailor's rib cage.
Then you believe him innocent?
Innocent of the murder, yes, but entangled with it, certainly. His tale of the yacht and his father interests me deeply. I must know more. Tomorrow, we return to London. There is work to be done in the shipping offices.
And so the next morning, weary yet unwilling to confess it, I joined Holmes on the train back to London. The countryside streamed past, but my companion was lost in silent calculation, jotting notes, consulting his index of names, and at times drumming his long fingers against the carriage seat. Upon our arrival, Holmes wasted no moment. He hurried me through the bustle of the city streets to a great office by the docks where ship registers and manifests were kept.
Good day, sir. I require information upon the movements of the whaling vessel. Sea Unicorn, out of Dundee, some 7 years past.
Sea Unicorn, you say? Aye, let me see. Yes, sail June of 83, crew list filed here. Captain Peter Carey and mates are here, Hudson Patrick, others too. Returned in September with cargo of oil.
Excellent. And what of a yacht named the Aurora, owned by Arthur Nelligan?
Aurora. Yes. Reported missing, presumed lost at sea the same year. No survivors listed.
Ah, very good.
Holmes thanked the clerk and withdrew, his eyes glittering with satisfaction.
Do you see, Watson? Carey and Hudson sailed together that very summer, the same time Nelligan's yacht vanished. Coincidence? I think not.
You suspect foul play at sea?
Precisely. The whaling men were rough fellows, not above turning pirate when opportunity offered. Suppose they fell upon the Aurora, plundered it, slew its owner, and divided the spoils. Carey, violent as he was, may have kept some portion hidden. Years later, Nelligan's son seeks the truth, and now Carey lies dead.
But by whose hand?
That, my dear Watson, is the question.
For several days, Holmes moved with restless energy about the city, inquiring at shipping offices, haunting taverns by the docks, and questioning grimy sailors with the air of one who speaks their very tongue. I accompanied him, though often bewildered by the clues he pursued. At last, late one evening, he returned to Baker Street with a peculiar gleam of triumph.
The neck tightens, Watson. I have traced Hudson. He is in London, skulking about the waterside, well aware the police seek him. It will not be long before he blunders into our hands.
And you believe in the murderer?
All points that way. He had cause for silence if Carey threatened to expose their past. He had strength to wield the harpoon, and he has vanished since the crime. The signs converge.
What then of young Nelligan?
He may yet prove the key, but his innocence must be established beyond doubt. Hopkins would gladly clap the gallows rope about his neck. We must not permit such miscarriage of justice.
Holmes spoke with unusual heat. Are you marsing heat? As though some god of sympathy bound him to the young man's plight.
I shall set one more trap, Watson. Tomorrow at dawn we travel again to Sussex. There, in Carey's cabin, I mean to stage an experiment. If Hudson lurks near, he will not resist the bait I lay.
And what bait is that?
Ah, you shall see. But keep your revolver at hand, for Hudson is a dangerous brute, and he may fight like a cornered rat.
Thus, on the following day, we found ourselves once more amidst the dark fir trees of Woodman's Lee. Holmes had arranged the cabin with curious care. The papers from Carey's chest spread temptingly upon the table, the window left ajar, the door half closed. Then he placed himself in shadow, motioning us to silence. Hours passed, the air heavy with suspense. At length, a twig snapped in the grove. A hulking figure crept into view, his face coarse, his beard matted. He glanced about, then strode to the cabin like a thief returning to his hoard.
Whispering Hudson, at last.
The man entered. At that instant, Holmes sprang forward, barring the door.
Patrick Hudson, I arrest you in the name of the law for the murder of Peter Carey.
Surrender, man, or we fire.
The sailor roared like a bull, snatched a knife from his belt, and rushed upon Holmes. "Dope!" I drew my revolver, but Holmes, with the swiftness of a cat, seized his wrist and twisted the weapon free. Hopkins and I flung ourselves upon him, and after a fierce struggle, we had the ruffian secured.
You see, Watson, the harpooner of the Sea Unicorn, caught in his own net. Now the truth must come forth.
Hudson spat curses, but his eyes betrayed fear. The game, it seemed, had entered its final act. Hudson was dragged into the dim light of the cabin, still struggling against our grasp. The harpooner's shoulders heaved, his face flushed with fury. Yet beneath that rage I detected a flicker of unease. He had underestimated Holmes, and that error would cost him dearly.
Sit, Mr. Hudson. You are now under my scrutiny, and it will profit you nothing to conceal the truth.
Spitting? Truth? I tell you, I've done nothing wrong. That boy, Nelligan, he steals the papers. It was his plan, not mine.
Indeed. Then explain why your boots leave impressions leading directly to the window, and why the harpoon was driven through Carey with a strength and skill which only you could summon.
Hudson froze, his jaw tightening, his eyes darted about, but no words came.
You will answer, or the law will extract your secrets. Start at the beginning. Your connection with Carey. What past binds you to him?
Growling. We sailed together. That man was my captain on the Sea Unicorn years ago. We blundered. Aye, we took what was ours. But the boy's father, he had gold. Gold meant for him to guard and carry. Carey betrayed him. I had no hand in that.
Holmes leaned forward, his sharp eyes narrowing.
So you admit the Sea Unicorn voyage? And what of the Aurora, Nelligan's father's yacht?
Snarling. Aye. The Aurora, we attacked her. Took her goods. She sank in the storm. But not by my hand. Carey, he took the gold and hid it. I meant only to recover what was mine.
That you went to Black Peter's cabin seeking the spoils?
Hesitating eye. But I swore to no harm. I only sought what Carey stole. But he provoked me, cursed me, laughed. In a moment, I struck.
I drew a sharp breath. The confession, at last, fell from him like a hammer upon an anvil.
So it was passion, greed, and all wrongs that led to the murder. You struck him with your own harpoon, and it drove true.
Nodding. True enough. I did not plan his death, but it came. I fled, feared capture, and left him there.
You leave us little choice, sir. The law must take its course.
Hudson slumped in defeat. Yet even now there was a grim dignity about him. He had faced the consequences of his past, however dark.
One moment, Hopkins. There is yet more to unravel. Look at these papers, Watson. Carey's old logbook and the bundles from his chest. Herein lie the final truths.
Holmes spread the documents upon the table. They were maps, manifests, and letters, many faded with age. One letter, in particular, caught my eye.
Observe, Watson, this letter, written by Nelligan Sr., addressed to Carey. It instructs him in secrecy regarding certain funds, warns him against fraud, and names Hudson as one entrusted with the cargo. Carey, in his arrogance, diverted the gold and hoarded it.
Holmes's voice was low, measured, as though each word carried the weight of judgment.
Herein lies the motive, Watson. Carey, by his own hand, sowed the seeds of vengeance. Hudson sought recompense, and when Carey mocked and threatened him, he struck. A tragic combination of avarice and pride, culminating in death.
Nelligan's innocence was thus confirmed, the young man a seeker of justice rather than a perpetrator.
Yes, indeed. And this, Watson, is why deduction is both science and art. By tracing prints, letters, and accounts, we reconstruct the crime as one might piece together a complex mosaic. Each shard has significance. Each shadow bears witness.
Hudson, now under firm custody, remained silent. Fight, but the confession etched itself plainly upon his features. His tale was one of old wrongs, mislaid fortunes, and violent passions, a tale written across the oceans and finally resolved in the fur-laden glade of Woodman's Lee.
Watson, do you perceive the lesson? One must never judge by surface appearances. Youth and fear led Nelligan to the scene, but skill and experience left the true handprint upon the world.
I nodded, awed, as Holmes collected the papers, rolled them carefully, and replaced them in the chest. The sun now broke through the morning fog, casting gold upon the cabin. The world, once dark with murder, now seemed illuminated by justice.
Hopkins, you will convey Hudson to the authorities, ensuring he faces trial. And Mr. Nelligan, I trust, will be free to pursue the truth of his father's fate without hindrance.
At once, Mr. Holmes.
We left the cabin with a sense of closure. Yet I could not help pondering the tangled web of greed and human frailty. Holmes, however, walked with his usual detached air, as though the grim events were but a puzzle solved, no more and no less.
Remember this, Watson. It is rarely passion alone that drives men to murder. There are always antecedents, motives, and hidden histories. In every crime there is a narrative waiting to be told, if only one can hear its whispers.
As we travelled back to London, Holmes's reflections dominated the carriage. He spoke little of the excitement, more of the deductions, the subtle interplay of evidence. Yet even in his calm, I sensed a quiet satisfaction, the thrill of the chase, the ultimate triumph of reason over chaos. And thus concluded the adventure of Black Peter, a tale of old grudges, ill-gotten gains, and the dark passions that lingered long after the sea had claimed its victims. For me, it was yet another lesson in the extraordinary powers of Sherlock Holmes, the art of deduction, the science of observation, and the patient unraveling of human complexity.
Watson, I trust you have observed carefully. The world is full of harpoons, of danger, deceit, and hidden motives. Only by attention to the minutest detail, by patient reasoning, can one hope to master it.
Indeed, Holmes, I have observed, learned, and been humbled as always.
And yet, Watson, let us not forget, the work is never done. For the criminal mind, like the tide, ever shifts, and the keen observer must ever be vigilant.
As I penned these lines in my journal that evening, firelight flickering upon the walls of 221B Baker Street felt once more the extraordinary privilege of being witness to Holmes's unparalleled genius. The adventure was at an end, yet the lessons lingered, and I knew, as always, that the mind of Sherlock Holmes would never rest while injustice remained in the world. The morning after Hudson's arrest, London lay shrouded in mist, the city's gas lamps flickering weakly through the haze. Holmes and I were once more seated at 221B Baker Street, the logbook of Peter Carey open upon the table, its pages still smelling faintly of tobacco and salt. Though the immediate danger had passed, Holmes's mind was far from idle.
Watson, you will note that while Hudson has confessed, much remains to be clarified. The young Nelligan must learn the ultimate fate of his father, and the question of Carey's hidden gold still persists.
I had thought all was concluded, yet Holmes spoke as though the denouement were merely the prelude to deeper discoveries.
I propose we begin at the offices of the shipping company, Watson. There are records here which will illuminate the movements of the Aurora, and possibly confirm whether Nelligan Sr. met foul play at sea or elsewhere.
Here, we made our way to the warehouse along the Thames, where Holmes immediately began poring over ship manifests and logbooks. Hours passed as he cross-referenced names, dates, and cargoes, his long fingers tracing lines of ink with the precision of a surgeon.
Here, Watson, note the port of registry for the Aurora. It departed Falmouth bound for the West Indies. Her last entry shows she was to meet the Sea Unicorn off the coast of Brittany.
And there it is, Holmes, the meeting point with Carey's vessel.
Precisely. Now, if we examine the weather logs, we see a violent storm on the very night of their rendezvous. The Aurora was reported lost, though no wreckage was found immediately. Carey and his companions sailed on, lightly aware of the disaster, but silent in the interest of secrecy.
Holmes looked up from the papers, his eyes bright with excitement.
And thus the mystery of Nelligan Sr. is partly resolved. The man perished at sea, yet not by criminal intent. The loss of the Aurora was a misfortune compounded by Carey's greed, for he absconded with gold entrusted to his care. Hudson and others, enraged by this betrayal, later sought recompense.
So, the chain of events leading to Black Peter's death becomes clearer with each revelation. The old, wrongs, Carey's misdeeds, the surviving accomplices, all converging upon that lonely cabin in Sussex.
Indeed, Watson, and observe the lesson, old acts of villainy have a long shadow. Carey's violence and treachery returned to claim him, not by random chance, but by the inevitability of human nature and the demands of justice, an idea.
That afternoon, we returned to the office of the young Nelligan. He was seated in quiet despair, fearing his father's legacy might remain forever tarnished, and yet unaware of the truths we had uncovered.
Mr. Nelligan, you have been wronged by circumstances most cruel. Your father's disappearance was not the result of crime, but of storm and misfortune at sea. Carey, however, betrayed trust and seized gold not his own.
Astonished? You mean my father? He was innocent?
Entirely. and the gold, though long hidden, will be recovered and returned to you in accordance with legal authority.
Relief flooded the young man's face. His shoulders relaxed, his eyes glimmering with tears. I had rarely seen such gratitude, nor such a transformation from despair to hope.
But you must understand, Leiden. Life often punishes innocence with delay. The truth will surface eventually, yet often at great cost. Hudson, now in custody, must face trial, and Carey, by his own hand, lies beyond the reach of law.
I shall do as you advise, sir. Thank you, both of you. I had lost hope. Phew.
And thus, a burden lifted from his young shoulders. Yet Holmes was already turning his thoughts elsewhere, as though the matter of Black Peter were merely one of many lessons in human folly.
Watson, consider the subtle interplay of motives. Each man acted according to his knowledge, his passions, and his opportunity. But Hudson's anger, Carey's avarice, Nelligan's search for justice, all threads in a fabric woven by time, circumstance, and temperament.
And you, Holmes, ever the observer, stand apart, analyzing each strand with relentless precision.
It is the duty of one gifted with perception, Watson, to see what others overlook. Each detail, however trivial it seems, contributes to the larger truth. The world is a puzzle, human actions its pieces.
Later, as we walked along the Thames, I reflected on the strange and tragic chain of events: the gold, the loss at sea, the vengeance of Hudson, and the final act at Woodman's Lee. Each was linked inexorably, each dependent on the other. Holmes walked silently beside me, his expression calm yet penetrating, as though he could see the hidden forces that govern not only crime but human life itself.
Watson, note well, the study of crime is the study of humanity. To know the mind of man is to understand both his capacity for good and the inevitable corruption of greed, envy, and wrath.
Indeed, Holmes, and Kami, and I felt once more that I was privileged to witness not only the resolution of a complex case, but the operation of genius in full measure. The adventure of Black Peter, savage and sorrowful though it was, had illuminated truths, both legal and moral.
And so it concludes, Watson. Let us return to Baker Street, where the comforts of home and the quiet companionship of intellect may restore the spirit. But remember, the world contains many Black Peters, many Hudsons, many Nelligans. Vigilance and observation are ever required.
As we entered the familiar rooms of 221BC, the lamps casting their warm glow upon the walls, I felt a profound sense of resolution. The young Nelligan had been spared, the injustice of false accusation, the murderer was in custody, and the mysteries of the past had been revealed. Yet the lesson lingered. Human deeds, like ripples upon the water, extend far beyond their origin, and the pursuit of truth demands patience, care, and unwavering attention. That night, as I recorded these events in my journal, I pondered once more the singular mind of Sherlock Holmes. In him, I had found a teacher, a friend, and a guardian of reason in a world often darkened by passion, greed, and caprice. Black Peter's story was now ended, yet its echoes would remain with me always, a testament to the power of intellect over chaos, of deduction over deception, and of justice, however delayed, over mere chance.
Watson, do you grasp the enduring principle here? Human motives are rarely simple. Every action, every omission, every whisper of past events may shape the present. To ignore these is to invite error. To observe them is to approach truth.
I nodded, ever mindful that each adventure taught more than the facts of the case alone. It taught discipline of thought, patient inquiry, and the humility to acknowledge the limits of one's own perception.
And now, Watson, we may rest, though the city hums with countless crimes yet unsolved, and the tide of human folly continues unabated. We are its quiet observers, its reasoned guardians.
And with that, the adventure of Black Peter drew to a close. Outside, London's fog crept along the streets, hiding untold stories, while within the walls of 221B, Sherlock Holmes and I, faithful companions and seekers of truth, contemplated the enduring mysteries of human nature. The case had ended, yet the lessons it imparted were eternal.